Yesterday, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia gave the Canadian ambassador 24 hours to vacate the kingdom, or there would be serious consequences. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has broken off all ties with Canada. They have unceremoniously and violently disrespected our country. They've completely ripped up the trade agreements that they were going to sign with us. Now, this is in response to Canada speaking against the practices that go on in Saudi Arabia, the human rights violations, the imprisonment of human rights activists, including a Canadian from, I don't know if he's a Canadian, but somebody who lived in Quebec, has a family in Quebec. And Canada was speaking against this. And Saudi Arabia, being disrespectful to our country, has removed the Canadian ambassador or given him 24 hours to leave the country. They have severed all relationships with our country. They have taken back their ambassador. They say they want nothing to do with Canada. Now, this is just the final proof that nobody, no country, no people, no organization around the world respects Canada anymore, and respects Canadians for that matter. Canada is a country without any respect. Nobody respects us. The Indians don't respect us. The Americans and Donald Trump don't respect us. The Saudi Arabians don't respect us. Nobody respects Canada anymore. And that goes back to Justin, the long-haired macdaddy Trudeau. But even worse than that, that goes back to the Canadian whores who elected the long-haired macdaddy in the first place. Now, you may say that it was only 38 or 39% of the population that voted for him, but still, yet another large majority of Canadians who didn't bother to vote were still jumping up and down, praising him for his good hair and his pot policy. Now, I have modernized my view on pot and marijuana. I actually, I think that if it's gonna be legal, it should be legalized. I think that it should also be private businesses should sell it, not just the government, and Doug Ford's going to do that. So that's not the problem. The problem is priorities. I am certainly not going to choose somebody just on the basis of pot over all the other problems that are out there. Now, the thing that you have to understand is that people aren't respecting Canada anymore because they see our country as weak. It's not to do with any human rights violations or speaking out against it. It has nothing to do with that. The Saudi Arabians know that they can get away with this. It is as simple as that. They know that nothing will be done. They can push Canada around. They can tell Canada off. They can order Canada around and push Canada around and tell them to get their ambassador the hell out of their country, or we're going to do something. They can lock up our people for speaking out against human rights because they know they can get away with it. That is the only option. That is the only answer. The Indian government and the Indian people know that they can mock our so-called prime minister. I don't even think he was elected constitutionally. I think the election was rigged, and there's many evidence with that. But they know they can mock him simply because they know that they can get away with it. Now, I'm not blaming them for mocking him. I mean, he deserves to be mocked. I mean, the way he went to India dressed up like an Indian, I mean, nobody does that. That's like going to Africa dressed up as an African. You don't do that. In fact, that's actually racist, I think. But they know that they can call the so-called prime minister any name in the book on their media. They can mock the people who voted for him. They can mock the country because they know that there will be no consequences. Donald Trump, he knows that he can rubbish the trade deals and mock the prime minister and mock the country and take advantage of our economy and hurt our steel industry because he knows he can get away with it, because he sees the Canadian government and the Canadian people as weak and as spineless and as foolish as anybody. I mean, you might be sitting there wondering whether or not the election in Zimbabwe was rigged. Now, it may have very well been rigged, but I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't rigged either. I mean, either way, I wouldn't be surprised. But Canadians might sit there and say, isn't it a shame that Zimbabwe, with all the problems they have, they still elected ZANU-PF over all the other opposition parties. I mean, they have inflation, their economy's in the toilet, their politicians are corrupt, their politicians are abusive, their soldiers beat them up on the street. The country is a mess. It is a crime and a sin and a shame. Zimbabwe smells like a toilet the first second that the plane lands at the airport there. And yet the people still elected them. Canadians should keep their mouth shut. They shouldn't say anything. The media, the people, y'all shouldn't say anything because you're just like Zimbabweans. I looked at the latest polls, and while the Liberals are, yes, shrinking in the polls, the fact that we have in fact, I would say the situation in Canada is worse. Canada may not smell like a toilet when you land at the airport in this country, but the fact that our government gives billions and billions of dollars every month to other countries, i.e. Indonesia, to help them with their infrastructure, Middle Eastern and African countries to help them with their food crisis, and now giving millions of dollars to illegal aliens who come to the country illegally, giving them free hotels. Meanwhile, we have natives living with poisonous water, and we have veterans who are trying to fight their own government for their basic benefits after serving their country. And you got a so-called prime minister, i.e. the son of Satan, saying that they're asking for too much, but he's not afraid to give free hotels to illegal aliens who broke the law. And then not to mention giving free laptops, free dental care, and free college tuition to refugees, and Canadians who've never left the country, probably never left their town, don't get any of that. I mean, that is worse than the situation in Zimbabwe. Let me tell you about the situation in Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, the population is mostly black. Now, the history is a very racist history where when the country was Rhodesia and was run by Ian Smith, the whites, who were probably like only 10%, less than 10% of the population, got everything. Everything. From the moment they came through colonial times until 1980s, they got everything, and the blacks got almost nothing. Now they're out, Mugabe comes in, and okay, yeah, he's a socialist, he has bad policies and everything, but at least you can say Mugabe is trying. He may be failing, but he tries to help his own people. We have a government in Canada that is not only not helping our own people, but they're working against their own people. That's worse than Mugabe. That's worse than Zimbabwe. As much as Zimbabwe smells like a toilet, as much as Zimbabwe's money is useless, their politicians care more about them than our politicians in Canada care about us. So I would say, don't laugh at the Zimbabwean, because the Zimbabwean, as bad as he is and as dumb and stupid as he is, electing ZANU-PF over and over again, at least he can go back and say, well, ZANU-PF cares about the black man and the African after the white man tore up our country. They care. At least they care about the black. They may not be succeeding, but at least they care. You can't say that in Canada. Trudeau has done nothing for Canadians. Absolutely nothing. In fact, he said he was going to legalize weed, and I mean, he barely has done it. I mean, he's legalized it in a sort of way, but like, it's a way where the government has all the power. It's not private investors and everything. And if it wasn't for Doug Ford, it would have remained like that in Ontario. So the bottom line is, the world is seeing what is happening in Canada. They're seeing this weak, bending over backwards government that cares more about the problems of the rest of the world than their own country, how weak and sniveling this so-called prime minister is, and they're going to take every opportunity they can get to make sure that they take advantage of our country and disrespect our country and bully our country and push our country around. And Saudi Arabia is the latest example. So what you gonna do, Canucks? What y'all gonna do? What you Canadians gonna do about this? Are you just gonna sit there and let the world laugh at your sorry tackhead selves? Or are you going to, you have many options. You can, first of all, show the world that you are against this government and against this weak government that's not standing up for candidates. Sign the petition that I posted on YouTube. Holding the long-haired macdaddy accountable for sexual misconduct. You can vote the long-haired macdaddy out in 2019. There are a number of things you can do. But if you allow this to continue, and if you allow yourselves to vote for Justin Trudeau, the son of Satan, in 2019, then you're just saying to the rest of the world, we like the fact that you're pushing us around and bullying us and trash talking us and taking advantage of us and hurting our economy by ripping up trade deals like Saudi Arabia and America are doing. We like all that. We love it. Do it some more. And we know that our weak government ain't going to do nothing about it. It's a shame. It's a shame how this is the only country in the world with a government that cares more about other countries than it does for this country. North Korea is not like that. Zimbabwe is not like that. Cuba's not like that. Not even Venezuela is like that. Canada is the only country on earth with a government currently that cares more about other countries than it does about their country. That is a fact. From Buffalo, New York, this is the Arana Nation. I will be back in Canada on Tuesday in my regular studios. I'm visiting family right now. And this is the Arana Nation.